What you're about to see is a tutorial video created by dev tipper Andrew Marks. I sent him a design and we separately built out the design using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So this is his video. You can find a link to the video that I made in the description below. And then we both came together and discussed the similarities and differences to our approaches. And that video is also a link in the description below. But for now, here's Andrew.
So, just as a warning, I have never recorded myself programming anything, so let's hope this goes well. So we've got this thing here. We're going to work on making it a website. It's basically a simple splash page, and when you click on this, we get a pop-up that comes up. And then in here, it's pretty simple. It talks a little bit about what you get for signing up, and then it's actually a sign-up form here with, I believe, yeah, I've got a placeholder, like enter your email address text box there. So that's kind of nice. And then we've got a little close button up here, although we're going to make it set up so that if you click anywhere here, it will actually work for you. To close it just for, reasons. User experience expectations. Anyway, so file structure is pretty simple. We have an index file with our HTML in it. We've got a Sass file here. I use SCSS. I realize Travis uses like true Sass, but I don't personally like it because I can't read it very well. And then we've got jQuery, which I will use for the simple JavaScript functionality. It's a little bit overkill of a library, but I'm not that great at true JavaScript. And then we've got our JavaScript file where we'll actually write our code. We have a compiled CSS document. I use prepros to compile everything. And then I've got my 3 images here. We've got a close button, which is this. We have this page description here, and then we also have the actual background of the entire image, this man here at his computer. Anyway, so that's what we're working with. We'll get started by typing out our HTML. Oops, I cannot spell at all. We'll set our title to be something generic like business website, since they don't actually have a brand in mind. We'll go ahead and link our CSS document. We'll open our body here. At the bottom of it, we'll go ahead and add in our JavaScript files. And then we'll add both of them. And then let's just make sure that we don't have any glaring errors. Awesome. So the first thing I want to do is actually set the background to the website here. So we're going to set background to be the image, that is /images/background. So that's going to be the man here. So if I pull that up, we've got him. The next thing we want to do is have it be no repeat. That will get rid of that bottom image. We will make sure that the image is centered and then fixed. And basically what that means is that if we scroll down and we have content to scroll, the image will stay fixed in this place. And then the center makes sure that it's both vertically and horizontally centered. And then we're also going to add the special property of background size here, which when we say cover will mean that this gets to cover the entire screen regardless of what the size of my browser is. So as you can see, he's always going to be him and just one of him. And it will dynamically size itself accordingly, which is pretty handy. I'm going to shrink you down there a little bit. And we'll get our developer tools open here because we're going to need that soon. So that's really nice. And that's basically everything for the body. Now Now let's think a little bit about how we actually want to structure the HTML for this. So I'm thinking we'll have a container around the entire thing. So we'll put a container there, and then inside of the container we'll have this, which is going to have a consistent height, so we can push it down by 50% and then back up by half of the height of this. And then this will position relative to these here so that these stay centered, and this is a button that's always underneath it. And to do that, I'm going to have a container for the entire thing, which I'm going to first put that over there. What do I want to call it? We'll call it a hero, I guess. And then inside of that we'll have our message, and inside of that we will have two spans with a good at, and then business, and then we'll also have after the message we'll go ahead and add a call to action of learn more now, and we'll just use a caret D symbol, although actually I'm going to be smart about it and we'll do and greater than. So now if we go over to here, we've got this here. You don't actually want to use the caret symbols in HTML, just for parsing reasons. So that doesn't look that great. So what we'll do is we'll go into our CSS and we'll say that the hero is going to be left, or first position absolute, with a top of 50% and a left of say 40%. So now that puts it right here, which is good. Inside of the hero we've got what did I call it? Our message, and that's going to have a span, which is going to be display block float left clear both. Good at business, okay. And then we also want to say action is going to be clear both. That'll put it at the bottom, which is good. And then we want to say that the span is going to have a background color of black. And then we'll also set a variable for our yellow color here, which I will grab using the dropper. Yellow is going to be that color. So now when I refresh it, our color is going to be yellow. Then we're going to say that our font weight is bold. Cool. The entire website, at least so far, is going to be the same Open Sans font. So I'm going to go ahead and set that. And I'm going to go ahead and grab that font here and import that. So now we've got that, and then what we need to do is make that really big. How big is this? Well, I'm going to go ahead and round and say that it's about 84 pixels. So we'll say that our font size is 84 pixels. Cool. Font weight is going to be 900. Whoa, did I grab the font weights appropriately? Add to collection. Use. I don't think I grabbed the bold one. No, I only grabbed the 300 weight. Now that should be a little bit bolder. Cool. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add some padding on the left and the right. About what was that? 24 pixels. So that's going to spread that out a little bit. We're going to add some margin on the top and bottom to give it a spacing above and below. Of how much? Five pixels, yeah. I halved it because we have a margin on the top and bottom, so we only want 5 pixels on each of them. Okay, so that's going to make that nicely sized. And then what we're going to do is I'm actually going to use my little tool here, grab this layout. So it has a height of 114 pixels plus 5 pixels padding, or margin, excuse me. So we're at basically 115 plus 10. So that's 125 pixels for each of these good at and then business, so each of these lines. So basically that's a total of 250, but I want to move up by just one of them. So what we're going to do is the actual message itself. I figured I was going to need to do this. Never mind. For the hero itself, we're going to say that it has a margin top of negative 125 pixels. So that will get that nicely centered. And as you can see, it stays centered. The only issue I could foresee being a problem, oops, oh, I was grabbing that one, is when we get to widths that are like less than this, although at that point we'd probably go into a mobile view, although I'm not planning on doing that. At least in this video I might do some kind of a follow-up where I make it more responsive. So the next thing is we have to style this guy down here. The call to action. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that it gets to have a background color of yellow. Cool. We also want to float it left. That way it shrinks that down. We're going to give it a font size of 23 pixels and a padding on the left and right of 20 pixels. So font size 23 pixels, padding of 20 pixels. So now that'll give us a little bit of a better size. Cool. And then we're going to give it also a font weight of bold. And then we're going to actually, how tall is it right now? That's the question. So we're at 32 pixels basically high, but we want to be to get the right padding here because there's a line height involved. 64. So basically we need to add 16 pixels on the top and bottom and padding. So I'll just tack that in right there. Ooh, wait a minute. Did I say that this was this 32? So that's 64. And then in Internet Explorer, it told us that its height was 32. I guess it looks about right. Then we also want to give it a margin top of 5 pixels. That will push it down so that we get the extra 5 pixels on the top here, so that we have the 10 pixel gap between all of those. Now, so that's basically complete. I would make it more responsive if we were doing a fully fledged website, but we're not. So the next thing I want to do is give it a pointer cursor so that when I click on it, or when I hover my mouse over it, it switches to the pointer, which kind of, from a user experience standpoint, implies that I can click on that. So what I'm going to do is now we're going to work on the actual overlay. So let's go back into our HTML. Whoa, why is this? Do I have an... I definitely just had an extra closing div tag. Apologies for anyone who noticed. And so the next thing is the actual modal window, if you will. The modal, or whatever you would call that. So what I'm going to do is make a class of modal, or modal. I'm not really sure how that is said. I've heard it both ways. And here we go. Let's make it a fixed position, because we're always going to have it be in the top left origin, and we're always going to have it be full width and height so that we get that yellow effect. So we're going to say top of 0, left of 0. And then we're also going to say 100% width and 100% height. And background color of yellow, that'll hover over here. Although I don't want it to be quite that yellow, I actually want it to be slightly transparent. How transparent does he have it? Let's just not be the designer here. He already did that. So we'll do 0.9. Yeah, that seems about right. Although, okay, that was weird. It kind of cut off that for just a second. Oops. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to have, I'm just going to call it a box. We're going to have a box on the inside. That's going to be this actual region here. Inside of that box, we're going to have a couple of things. We're going to have a close button, and we'll come back to that later. But we're also going to have, we're going to basically have a top, a bottom, and then the top section is going to be divided into a left half and a right half. I'm just trying to think about what to call each of those things. We'll call the top half content, since that's kind of the content. We'll call the bottom half form, since that's the form. And then inside of the content area, we're going to have sample pages. That's this right-hand region here. And then we're also going to have what do I want to call that? I'm really bad at naming stuff. I'm going to be really not creative here, and we're going to call it left half. I legitimately cannot come up with a name for that, and I apologize for the bad, semantic naming here. So let's go back to here. and we'll refresh the page. You'll notice we don't really have anything different since I didn't put anything in any of these. Oh, and then left half will have title, and then body. I'm so bad at naming stuff. So for the title, we've got business stuff in your inbox all the time. And for the body, we've got sign up for our newsletter to download this 200 plus page I could have just copied that, I realize. And then in the sample pages thing, we're going to set the image actually with CSS to make sure it's absolutely positioned correctly. Now, to actually style it, we're going to come into here and we're going to set up the box. So the box is going to have a position of absolute, which means it will be positioned relative to the top left point of the parent, which is because the parent's position fixed. So we'll set its left to be 50% and its top to be 50%. We will set a width and height on that box of, there we go. I'm going to be really precise here. 600 by 360. And then a background color of white. And then we're going to say that has a margin top of minus, we're going to do half of the width, so 180 pixels. I could set variables for these things and actually do the math, but I don't actually think that that's necessary for this scale of a project. So that'll get us, oops, that needs to be margin left. That'll get us nice and centered there. And then inside of the box we have the close button, which we'll come back to. We've got content and form. So the content in here, so first the form is going to have a height of 97 pixels. And a width of 100%, which means the content, I'm going to just grab my iPhone here. So 360 minus 97 is 263. So that means the height of this is going to be 263 pixels. The width is still 100%. Now if we zoom out here, you'll notice that we have black behind the form elements here. So I'm going to just set a background color of black. Oops. So now if I come back here, we'll have the form section at the bottom. And then if I come into pages here, it can I grab properties? So this actually has a width of 257 pixels. So we're going to set the width of the image or the sample pages here to be, what did I just say it was? I cannot remember now. Uh, 257. So we're going to set sample pages to be 257 pixels wide. And the height of this is going to be 100%. We can do that because the parent, we have a fixed height here, and so it'll just fill that up. And then I'm going to actually set the background image of this right now to just be .images slash what did I call it? Pages dot png. So close that. We'll go back to IE. We've got this here, and what we want to do is we actually want to go ahead and float this left, which is going to bring it above that. And then we want to say that our left half, I cannot believe that I did not name that something better, but we'll go with it for now, is going to actually have a width that is 600 pixels, so the width of this entire thing, minus the width of this, which is 257. So that is 343 pixels, and a height of 100%, and we're going to float it left. Cool. So that's going to position those things correctly. Now inside of the left half, and I also realized that I may not want to be nesting this stuff so deep because our actual output CSS, we're getting like really long selectors here. But for now I'm not going to worry about that because I'm not making this a terribly optimized CSS file right now. So in the left half we're going to have our title, and that's going to have a font size of 23 pixels and a font weight of bold. Refresh that, and then we're also going to give it padding of 30 pixels. So that'll move that over nicely. And I actually don't like the way that that's looking, so what I'm going to do is actually increase the font size to like 28. Really? There we go. That just looks a little bit cleaner with a little bit larger type. And then what we're going to do for the body, which is this right here, we're going to give it the same padding except only on the left and right, so that'll move it over. We're going to give it a font weight of bold, but then what we're going to do is we're actually going to decrease the color. We're going to make it kind of, that's a pretty light gray, I want that gray. We're going to give it a color of 9999999, which will make it nice and light. And then also I noticed that took up 3 lines. How do we want to do that? He's got it kind of moved over there. So I'm going to do that in a fantastic way, where I simply make that a big number on the padding on the right hand side here so that it pushes that text down. I actually want to increase that until there we go. Now it looks right. That is not a terribly great solution, but it gets the job done. I could have changed the width of it, but this does effectively the same thing. And then what I'm going to do is set its line height to be about 1.2 ems. What that's going to do is that's going to, so let's go like 1.4. That's just going to increase the distance between lines. That's actually too much. Cool. So that's going to make it look fairly similar to this. Like I said, it's not going to be pixel perfect, but it's just because the font's different. So now we'll do the close button next, since that's pretty easy. Close button is going to have a position of absolute, and we're going to say that it gets a left of 100% and a bottom of 100%, and a margin left of, so basically we're up here as our reference point. We're going to put a margin left of 15 pixels, or wait, 10 pixels, and a margin bottom of 10 pixels. That was phenomenal typing. Okay, so what that's going to do is nothing, because I haven't set a width of 24 pixels and a height of 24 pixels yet, and a background image of data/images/x.png. So that's going to put that there. Why is that gray? Did I have a background in? Huh. I saved that without any transparency. Let's go ahead and fix that. So we will grab this here, and we'll select the X layer. Create a new file that's 24 by 24. Ooh. Let's just hide all of that stuff. We will copy that. Trash, paste. Now I've got a transparent background. That is okay. We're going to save that as a PNG image to retain the transparency. X, yes. Okay, I don't know how that ended up that way the first time, because that's exactly what I did to save it. Okay, so that's there, and then I'm also going to just preemptively say that the close cursor is going to have a pointer. So basically, that's going to be so that when we hover our mouse over it, it gives us the impression that we can click on it because of the pointer. So now let's do the form. So that's going to be underneath the content. I've already got a thing here. So inside of the form, we're going to have two sections. We're going to have an input type of text, and I'm just going to give that a class of email. I'll go ahead and put email here for auto-completion's sake. And then we're also going to have a submit. And then value is going to equal, what does he have set? So he just says submit. Okay, now I come back here. We've got a beautiful form. So first, input. We're going to say that each of these gets box, sizing, border, box, and that means that when I set a width and a height and then add padding, the padding is going to come out of the actual width and height of the object instead of adding to it, if that makes any sense. That's just something you get used to when you start working with like the box model. So let's figure out how big these need to be. 57 pixels, so we're going to give them a height of 57 pixels and a padding of 20 pixels. So what that means is that when I come over here, cool, and then we're going to do a margin of, does that say 20 pixels? I can't, yeah, 20 pixels. So now, perfect. And then what I'm going to do is on the actual submit button, margin left 0. That will just get rid of the extra margin we've got there. So now let's figure out how wide this needs to be using some very scientific process. 380. Cool. And then the submit button is going to be 160. And we're going to say that each of these gets no border. Where's the extra space coming from here? $376. I said that this got a width of 380. Why did it jump down to 336? Oh, it's 336 because I scrolled this down to 376. Yeah, see, there's a little black gap right here, and I don't know what that is. Oh, it's because these are inline elements. Display block, float left. There we go. They're inline elements, and so it sees the white space between this as basically a space character, like the space between words here, and so it adds that space in there. So now what we're going to do on each of these inputs is say that it gets a font family. I hate that you have to specify this again, but we do. So font family condensed, font weight bold. What did he have as the placeholder? He had enter your email address. Now we've got a placeholder, and then we're also going to give each of these a font size of approximately 14 pixels. Does that look right? first submit gets a background color yellow and a color, it's already got a color black. Cool, that looks pretty good. Box actually, now that I think about it, needs to get a shadow so that, see how there's kind of there's a shadow around the edge here. I'm just going to kind of wing the shadow, 0, 0, 30 pixels, 0, black. I don't actually know if that's going to look right. A little bit much. Let's go and let's reduce it a little bit. That looks pretty similar. I'm going to make it actually like 18 pixels and 0.4. Reduce it a tiny bit more. Those shadows look pretty similar. I'm happy with that. So now, I guess it's time to work on the JavaScript. Although, I'm going to go ahead and actually do one more thing. I'm going to wrap this in form tags so that when you press enter, actually hang on, I don't want that to actually validate that for me, so I'm going to remove the email. It actually knows to submit the form. Actually, I'm going to do that a different way. I don't like that. So the one other thing I want to do stylistically is in the submit button. I think it should have a pointer cursor to let you know that you can click there. We need to figure out how to make this appear and disappear. What we can do is say that opacity of none, which is the modal is a whole. Opacity of none, although it's still here. Like, you'll notice I can't see it, but I can like type in the box here, which doesn't really make sense. But what I can do is actually set something called pointer events to none. And basically what that's going to do, it's going to basically make it so it doesn't exist. Clicking on it isn't going to trigger any JavaScript events or anything like that. Oops, that's a weird Internet Explorer bug since I'm in developer mode. Thanks, Internet Explorer. So that's kind of a neat technique that I use. It does not work in anything older than Internet Explorer 11, and so you would want to implement fallbacks. But since I have IE 11 and it works in Chrome, Firefox, and Opera, and Safari, there really isn't a reason that you can't implement it as long as you implement a fallback for IE. So if we go into our JavaScript file, let's go ahead and get an event handler set up to tell when the document is ready. Why are you giving me an error? Can I... There. I don't want that to give me an error. So what I'm going to do is in here I'm going to select this here, which we called call to action. And we're going to set an event such that when I click on it, I'm going to run a function, and that function is going to open the modal. Oops. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to define that function down here. And what that's going to do is it's actually going to select HTML, and we're going to add a class of Modal Open. Cool. So what that's going to do is when I click on here, you'll notice we get a class of Modal Open here. And what that means is that when I come into here, I can actually say that when the modal's open, grab the modal and set its opacity to 1 and its pointer events to all. So basically, when I click on this now, it pops up with a thing. Now that's great, except that it's not well animated. But the advantage of doing it through CSS is I can simply implement a transition of, say, opacity, 0.2 seconds, ease in, out, I don't know. So now when I click on it, it fades in, which is nice. Which is actually pretty nice. I'm actually going to do one more thing, wherein instead of being a margin top of 180, we're actually going to make a margin top of -200. So it's going to be a little bit above where we want it to be perfectly centered. As you'll notice if I scroll, we're a little bit above the actual center point here. And then so what I'm going to do here is say that when the modal opens, the actual modal itself is going to change when the modal's open, we're going to change the box such that it has a margin top of -180 pixels. So then when I click on this, that's centered. And then if I come up here and actually animate that, I click on this. Why aren't you working? Oh, I have it set to transition opacity. I want to transition margin. So now, why aren't you working? Oh, I need to transition this margin. So now, that's going to kind of fade in a little bit and slide down as the background fades in, which is nice. Now what I want to do is I want to select the close button. When I click close modal, and then I'm going to define a function of close modal, and when I do that, instead of adding that class, I'm going to remove that class. So now click on this, click on that, click on this, click on that. So the next thing that I'd like to do is have it so that if I click on this yellow space here, it closes it as well. So the way I can set that up is by saying if I click on the modal itself, close the modal. So now that works like you'd expect. However, it also works like if I try to type my email, oh no, it would have disappeared. You know, that doesn't work well. So what I need to do is I'm going to pass in a parameter event so that I can actually access things about it. So I'm going to say if the event, I'm not going to go and do like a full JavaScript tutorial here. That might be some other day, I don't know. But if the event.target, so basically what jQuery does is it sets up this object called event and it passes it into the callback function that is this thing. And one of the properties it defines is the target. And so what target is it's the thing you actually clicked on. It doesn't include things that are the children elements like any of this box or any of the box's children. And so what we can do is we can actually use this keyword and the event.target and see if they're the same. So if event.target is equal to this, what we're going to do is we're going to say close modal. So now, if I refresh it, and I click on the yellow, it closes. But if I click on the inside, it works just as you would expect, which is pretty handy. And then also the close button up here obviously still works. So that's how you would do something like that. Now, there are a million different ways to implement something like this. And that's kind of the point of these videos that we were making. This video that we were making with. Wow, I can't speak. The purpose of the video that me and Travis are making right now. So that's pretty much everything I had for this. Yep. Anyway, so I will put all of this code on GitHub. Travis may include a link in the description. I don't know. I haven't talked about that with him yet. I realized that this code is not well optimized whatsoever, and that things that I did, like this pointer events trickery, you would have to create fallback solutions for older browsers. And then also, this SAS file is a little bit of a mess because I'm nesting really deeply, and also I didn't name things terribly well, and I typed some redundant code, but it gets the point across as far as a method by which you could implement something like this. And also, for the record, I don't know if it will have already been mentioned, I am not a web developer. I develop apps, so this isn't something that I normally do, and so I was a little bit out of practice. Anyway, that's how I made this design in code.
Thank you so much, Andrew, and thank you for watching this. Andrew is a supporter of the DevTip show via Patreon. He and about 90 other patrons receive extra perks like being able to watch these videos a few days early and having access to the DevTips live chat room. If you're interested in learning more about becoming a patron of DevTips, I'd love to have you check out patreon.com/devtips. That's it for today, and until I see you next Monday, keep on hacking.